It is Tuesday, February 3rd. I'm Scott Seidenberg. Here's what you need to know to make today a better day. It is our Super Bowl Propapalooza. That's right. We teased you, we said it was coming, and it is officially here. So welcome into the Propapalooza. Joining me on this episode of Better Day, presented by FanDuel, as always, is Mackenzie Rivers and the mad journalist himself, one of Fantasy Pro's most accurate fantasy football analysts for several years from bettingpredators.com, Chris Dell. Chris, thanks so much for joining us here for our Super Bowl Propapalooza. Are you ready, my friend?
I'm ready to go, man. It's Christmas time once again, and we're not going to have another game to bet on for quite some time. I think just having this past Sunday felt a little weird, Scott. Kind of made me a little sad, but at least I'll have a temporary reprieve from that just from this weekend from betting all these Super Bowl props.
Yeah, you don't remember when like the Pro Bowl was on the Sunday? Or listen, I wish the Pro Bowl was still after the season and in Hawaii, but then when they changed it to the week before and they put it on the Sunday, now it's like the flag football game is on Tuesday, or I don't know. This whole thing is just a complete joke. Were you gonna say something?
The Pro Bowl again?
Yeah, I just had an epiphany. We love to see the best players in the sport get together, hobnob, but we don't want them half-assing their sport. We should just move one to the right. NFL players play an all-star basketball game at the end of their season. Basketball players maybe play baseball. Maybe they're not skilled enough for that. Maybe they play flag football. But, no one wants the Pro Bowl. No one wants the All-Star game. We want the Super Bowl. We want the props. We want actual competition, so that's what it's about.
LeBron James already had that idea, Mackenzie. Sorry to break it.
He also had the idea for the deluxe bonus CD, which is amazing. Just another track right afterwards, released a couple weeks later. Brilliant from LeBron.
It's very smart. All right, so here's what we're going to do for the Super Bowl Propapalooza. We are going to go position group by position group. Odds, of course, courtesy of the FanDuel Sportsbook. Then at the end, we will give you some Super Bowl MVP bets, and then the game specials. That's right. Some of the novelty props, but the game specials that are available and bettable right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook. So we start Patriots, Seahawks, and the sexy position of quarterback. There's been a lot of talk about Drake May and him being banged up with his shoulder. Any concerns, Mackenzie, about the Patriots attacking down the field with a somewhat limited Drake May, if we are to believe he's limited at all?
Well, if all you knew was these two facts, he has a mysterious shoulder injury, and he threw for 80 yards in his last game, you would be right to raise a red flag. And the fact that we didn't talk about it much in the lead-ups to those playoff games, but he had a lot of yards versus the Chargers, but they've gone under their team total in every game. The Patriots offense and Drake May doesn't look to be the same. I think when there's smoke, there's fire. So I wasn't considering it heading into last week, but it would explain a lot of things about how he's played in the playoffs.
And for Sam Darnold, Chris, that oblique injury that came about before the NFC Championship game didn't really appear to affect him much. Are we thinking that was just kind of much ado about nothing?
Yeah, I think maybe in the moment it was something, but it didn't seem to affect him. Like you said, in the last game, he was still very efficient against the Los Angeles Rams. Now he's got 2 full weeks off, so I'm not too concerned about it. Maybe it could pop back up. Who really knows at this point? I'm going to treat it as if both quarterbacks are fully healthy, or at least close to that. I mean, we're recording here Monday afternoon. Maybe we get some injury news later this week that we can act on. But right now, I'm assuming, no one's 100% healthy this time of the year, but they're as close to it as you can get. That's how I'm approaching it.
So here's the yardage for passing for both Drake May and Sam Darnold up on FanDuel right now. Drake May, 220.5. Sam Darnold, 228.5. Chris, does either of those numbers attract a bet from you?
I mean, I really think that Drake May over his passing yards would be the area I would go, just because of the point spread, right? Like, we have to play this in some type of angle. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm fully convicted that the Seahawks are going to win this game. They're 4.5-point favorites, but the reality is they are 4.5-point favorites here, right? They do have an elite defense, and Drake May, like, this is a situation where we look back, like Mackenzie mentioned the Chargers game, that was a tight game for most of the game, 16-3 at the end, yes, but 268 yards against a pretty good Chargers secondary, mind you, as well. You just look back at a couple of the games to close out the regular season for Drake May, against Baltimore, at Baltimore, 28-24 win, 44 pass attempts, 380 passing yards. The week after, even in a blowout win against the Jets, 256 passing yards. So, and then a couple weeks before, another tight game, like a touchdown or less final score outcome, 35 pass attempts, 294 yards against the Bengals. So I think when you see the trends overall, when the Patriots are involved in like touchdown or less games, or even like, 2 touchdown or less games, you're typically seeing the over for Drake May in his passing yards and his pass attempts. So when you look over the last 4 weeks, the number that jumps out the most to me, and this is really a season-long trend as well, Patriots are top 3 in pass rate over expectations over the last 4 weeks. That's only second to the Broncos and the Jaguars. When you look at season-long, they are 5th overall in neutral pass rate. And then when you look at the overall season PROE, they are 4th in the league as well. Red zone, they are 4th in the league in pass rate. So all across the board, this is a pass-heavy team unless they are winning by multiple scores. And mind you, they've had a lot of multiple score wins because of their poor schedule. And I think that skews the numbers of what this team really is in competitive games. So I can only look overs right now for Drake May.
Mackenzie, what do you think about the passing yardage for both Drake May and Sam Darnold?
It's funny, Chris. I think we kind of switched spots. Where on Friday we were talking about quarterbacks, and you mentioned attempts, and I thought yards might be the way to go for Drake May, but I 100% agree that he's going to be dropping back a lot. I'm not sure how successful he'll be. Maybe I'm reading too much into news reports. Would not surprise me if he was healthy, but that leads me closer to attempts, which you recommended. But his attempts right now, still at 30.5, a little bit reduced vig on the over at FanDuel. I kind of would lean that direction. The Seahawks number 1 against the rush, EPA-wise, defensively on the season. Good against the pass, but number 5. So matchup-wise, it's probably, whether they're down or not, advantageous for them to look through the air.
Pass attempts, you have Drake May 30.5, as you mentioned, Sam Darnold 29.5. I think Drake May, the over is like, I think if you wait until post, you might actually get a couple of more yards here on the over and have a real good value play on the under. And that's going to be my recommendation for most of the, most of the teams, most of these props, is you're going to find value on the unders as you get closer and closer to kickoff on Sunday because the public loves just coming in on overs. So if there is an over that you like, you might want to jump in now. And if there's an under that you like, you might want to wait and see if that number gets inflated by the time we get to kickoff. I don't know about how successful the wide receivers are going to be here against the Seahawks defense. And yes, there's been a lot of conversation about, the Patriots ran through all these great defenses in the playoffs, the Chargers defense and great defense in the Texans. And sure, yes. But again, we also look at Drake May's passing yardage in these playoffs, which has been suppressed significantly. Is it due to an injury? Is it due to the defenses? This Seahawks defense might be unlike anything that they've seen in the regular season. And we talk about Drake May and the Patriots having the easiest regular season in quite some time. The first team ever to make a Super Bowl with this low of a scoring points per game average in the playoffs. So I tend to favor the Seahawks defense versus a lot of these Patriots offensive stats here. I don't know if there are some overs that I like with the Patriots, but for the most part, a lot of the passing and receiving stuff for the Pats, I think I want to go under.
Just from a pure volume perspective on Drake May, I just think that 220 is pretty low. And when you look at the defense versus position metrics, these are schedule adjusted for the entire season. Seahawks are a great defense all around. We know that, but they're strongest against the run. And they actually are pretty giving in terms of their production allowed to tight ends. Receivers and quarterbacks, they are strong, but not elite in those metrics. And I want to bring up their schedule first because we haven't really talked too much about it. I think they had 2 primetime games in the last month against the San Francisco 49ers, and they completely dominated both of those matchups. But when you look at just going back the last few months, like Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, this is back in October. I know it's a while ago, but still 379-ish yards, 38 points for the Bucs. Trevor Lawrence the week after went over 220 passing yards by a lot in that next game, a 20-12 loss. That was a win for the Seahawks. Stroud went over his passing yards. Then you look at the quarterbacks they're playing. Jacoby Brissett went over that passing yards number. Jaden Daniels went under, very banged up. Matthew Stafford went way over in the games that they played. Cam Ward went over that number against the Seahawks as well. And then you look at the games where the Seahawks dominated. J.J. McCarthy, Kirk Cousins, Phillip Rivers, and Bryce Young. So, yes, they dominated those 2 games against the 49ers passing-wise, but why did Matthew Stafford have nothing but success against this secondary? I think what we've seen, especially 2 times ago they played that game where Puka Nacua had 250-plus yards, this Seahawks passing game is beatable through the air, and I think the pass rate numbers for the Patriots, assuming Drake May healthy, the volume and that 220, in my opinion, are going to be pretty easy to clear just from a volume perspective, assuming this -4.5 spread is going to hold up in somewhat of a close game here. And the fact that the Patriots really aren't going to get much going on the ground because that's where the Seahawks defense is the strongest, and that makes me feel stronger about these, at least the passing yards play. It's hard for me to bet an individual over because the Patriots spread it around so much. I could maybe only look over for the tight ends. But I think tight end over, quarterback over, and then maybe receiver under is a way you can kind of approach it based on these season-long trends.
The one concern that I have, and the Seahawks, you mentioned, their defense is incredible. They finished, Mackenzie, they finished with the 12th best defense in DVOA history this year. Like, that's
Wow.
incredible. The 12th best defensive DVOA in history. They finished overall the seventh team, number 7 in DVOA history since Aaron Schatz and company started tracking this stuff, right? So that's how historically good.
DVOA will take into account the schedule, but still with 4 games against the Rams and the 49ers, that's impressive. Maybe that's why their defense was so good, because they go against the best.
The question that I have is like with all due respect to Stephon Diggs, he's not an elite wide receiver, and you look at some of those teams that did have good passing numbers against the Patriots, like I would say, like, what did Nico Collins do in that game? What did you mentioned Puka Nacua? I'll take Puka Nacua and Jackson Smith and Jigba over anybody in the NFL right now against any defense. I don't care who you play against. Like, if Drake May's gonna throw for 250 passing yards here, let's say, and he doesn't need to, you just need 221 if you're betting the over 220, right? So that's just we don't necessarily need 250. But where are those yardage going to? Where are those yards coming from? If we're saying Hunter Henry's going to get 50, great game. Cool. I think we all love Hunter Henry to have a big day here. But is Stephon Diggs going for over 100? Is Mac Hollins going for 60? Is Kayshon Boutte catching a deep pass down the field for 45 yards? Like, where is the yardage coming from? I think I think the attempts, like you mentioned, Mackenzie, might be the way to go over the 30.5 attempts for Drake May as the safer play than the yardage. Because I do think that the passing volume will be there for sure. I just don't know how effective he'll be. And maybe I might want to fade the completions. Maybe I'd want to go under 20.5 completions for Drake May.
I think if you have a 2-team, mini hedge where you have over attempts and under completions, you're have a possibility to go 2-0 and likely go 1-1.
Yeah.
It depends I think it's very correlated to how you think the game script plays out. And I'll say it here. I like the Seahawks a lot. I like -9.5 plus.
Yeah. I don't know
plus
about
money.
-9.5. I don't know about -9.5, but I'll give you the recommendation on the alternate spread. We'll do that in a little bit.
Yeah, maybe 19.5. I don't know. I'm having flashbacks to last time the Seahawks win the Super Bowl. But if you think the Seahawks roll, that will give you a lot more safety on the May over, which I do lean over on both his attempts and yards.
I just think the where the Seahawks secondary funnels stuff in terms of them being below average against tight ends and to the slot area of the field, you're going to see more short completions than anything else, especially him throwing to the running backs as well. They actually Seahawks defense gave up the most running back receptions in the league this year. So you're going to see running back targets. You're going to see targets to the running backs, targets to the tight ends. That would draw me a little away from the completions under. Look, I agree. Like me and Mackenzie talked a few days ago, like I would put attempts over as my favorite of the 3.
Yeah.
But of the 2, but I still do like the passing yards over 220 because like I don't see a situation where the Patriots get into a positive game script where they're leaning towards the run here. If they do, then this whole conversation is blown up. We're going off the 4.5 point spread here. We're respecting the Seahawks here on both sides of the ball as well. those are the areas I look. And the fact, again, I can look back and say guys who went over against the Seahawks, 220 is not a high bar to clear. Baker Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud, Jacoby Brissett, Cam Ward, all these guys went over 220.5. So I'm not saying Drake May is going to light the world on fire. And I don't think he needs to have a 100-yard receiver here. 30 yards. He throws it to 6-7 guys in a given game. 30 yards for 5 guys, you're at 150. And then you just need one guy to have 60 or 70. I don't really like to think about it in that realm. I don't think he needs to have a blow-up game from any individual receiver on this offense because of the way the Patriots really spread it out. They have done that pretty much all year.
And we're not being taxed. This isn't like one of these props, which we'll talk about, that are taxed significantly. His conference championship line was 223.5. His line in the divisional round was the same thing, 220.5. In the wild card round, it was much higher, 242.5. But he was coming off of a bunch of great performances, like Chris mentioned, at the end of the season. So the last 2 weeks, 220.5 and 223.5. This line is right on pace with where it has been in the last 2 playoff games. So it's not like you're being taxed here on the Drake May passing yardage prop. And I always like playing props that we're not getting taxed on. So
the last time he had a prop lower than this was actually week 4, looking at betting pros.
Yep.
So this is as low as it's going to be.
Exactly. So there's going with the injury concern possibly, but also the Seahawks defense. It's all being baked into this line. I love just playing. I would so much rather play props that aren't taxed just because it's the Super Bowl and just because of, public perception and whatnot. So this one is to see it on par with what it has been the last 2 weeks. It is, I'm more inclined to play it.
I just want to throw one thing in. When you look at games for the Patriots this year, decided by a touchdown or less, and you just remove 2 games specifically, which is the Denver game with the snowstorm in the second half, and remove a month ago when they lost to the Bills, where they strategically tried to run nonstop against the Bills. Yeah. If you remove those 2 games by the Patriots decided by a touchdown or less, Drake May is 8-0 to the over of 220.5 this year passing yards.
That's interesting. I mean, I would think he would go over more too. We haven't seen them lose by a lot because they played, the Sisters of the Poor this season in the NFL.
That includes 2 losses by a touchdown week 1 to the Raiders, 287 yards, 21-14 loss to the Steelers in week 3, 268 yards.
Yeah, and if you like the Seahawks to win and win by margin, then you should like more throwing here from Drake May. My favorite Drake May prop, though, is on his running, not his passing. Let's talk about Drake May's rushing props. So he has, obviously, the rushing yardage prop, which people are going to look towards first, which is taxed a little bit to 36.5. His rushing attempts is right on par with what it has been for the past couple of weeks, which is at 6.5. His longest rush is at 13.5. Now, I hate being the guy that says, I got a better number in pocket. Oh, cool, right? But I did bet Drake May over 12.5 yards for his longest rush, and I think I'm okay betting over 13.5 for his longest rush. My thought process here is that while the rushing yardage is taxed, the longest rush is not. Okay? If you look at his rushing yardage numbers, and the prop lines I'm talking about, his line in the conference championship game was 29.5. Okay, it was 36.5 against the Texans, 26.5 in the wild card round. It was lower than that, 15.5 in week 18, 20, 21.5, 20.5. Obviously, this number being pushed up to now 36.5 at FanDuel, 37.5 other places is it's a tax. Everybody's betting it. And it still could hit. Everyone's betting it. But what hasn't been taxed is the longest rush. This has stayed 12.5, 12.5, 13.5, 12.5, 13.5, 12.5, 13.5, 13.5. And that's what I mean by playing into prop lines that haven't been taxed or influenced by maybe the public market. So while the public's going to come in and bet over 36.5, pushing it up to 37.5, we might get to 38.5 or 39 by the time we get to Sunday. The longest rush has stayed the same. And that's where I want to attack the market. So give me Drake May longest rush over 12.5. If you have to play over 13.5, I'm okay with it. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm reading it right here. He is 5-2 to the over in his last 7 games, playoffs and regular season. Obviously hit it in 2 or 3, and you're talking about those 28 and 37 yard games gains against the Broncos and Chargers respectively. So anytime we see the situation where it's going to be a very strong pass rush and we have offensive line concerns and the quarterback is somewhat mobile here in Drake May, I could only look over for sure. And given that the number is pretty high overall, I think that's a very interesting angle to take, is just the longest rush. Just get one and get out.
Exactly. Like Mackenzie, you don't have to play into a taxed market. You don't have to pay extra vig. This is basically like saying you don't have to pay extra vig, right? Like if I told you can bet something at even money versus betting something at minus 120, you would say, I'll give me the even money bet. I'm not going to waste an extra 20 cents. Well, I'm telling you right now, his yardage prop is taxed by a couple of yards. It probably should be 2 yards lower. Probably should be 33.5 or 34.5. But the longest rush is still what it has been pretty much the entire season.
And the Super Bowl, this big picture, has these opportunities. It's the only time in any NFL card where a money line and a spread might not be what the chart says by more than 10 cents, because there are other factors. If it's just flooded with casual bettors in a particular market, it might be taxed in a way that the rest of the market doesn't move. It's not necessarily right or wrong. You can definitely find value if you think the public's wrong. Sometimes the public has a beat on something. I think if last week or 2 weeks ago when we were talking conference championship, we were saying who's going to be the number one rushing player of the week. And I'm like, I like Drake May, and he wasn't even on the board. He ended up not being the number one rusher of the game. He was passed in the fourth quarter by Stevenson. But I do think maybe it was because of the snow, but maybe it's because of the arm. I think there's an outside chance that he might be very run heavy. So plus 50 yards or more is 2-1. Plus 60 yards or more, he had more than 60 last week, is plus 350. I think that might be worth a sprinkle.
Look at you with the alt lines, Mackenzie. We love the ladder plays. I love Drake. I love him to go over 6.5 rushing attempts. And Chris, there's so many different ways you can just steal rushing attempts, right? Obviously, kneel downs are a way to steal rushing attempts. But just what about the idea of you get stuffed on a tush push or on 3rd and 1, and then you go for it again on 4th and 1. Like, you can literally pick up 2 rushing attempts and only 1 yard on consecutive plays. So there's so many different ways. Or let's say you're setting up a field goal and you just take a couple of steps to the right and fall down just to kind of set up in the middle of the ball to set up a field goal attempt. There's so many ways to steal a rushing attempt, and that's why I like Drake May over 6.5 rushing attempts.
I certainly would play the longest rush, and I would lean the longest rush and rush attempts over the overall rushing yards to avoid that tax, like you said. And in two of the 3 biggest games of the year for the Patriots, we see double-digit rush attempts for May, 10 and 10 against the Chargers and Broncos, respectively. So, yeah, I can only lean with you there. I don't think the most rushing yards of the game, I think that's a huge tax. It's plus 650 in FanDuel right now. Maybe if it was like 15-1, I'd be interested, but I'm not paying that low of a number. Not worth it at all, in my opinion.
Sam Darnold's rushing yards, 2.5.
Very square bet.
Mackenzie, what do you think? 2.5 for Sam Darnold. Oh, no, that's rushing attempts. 2.5 rushing attempts for Sam Darnold. What do you think?
I don't think he's going to need it. I mean, you get the kneels, because the one thing I don't like about the May over 6.5 is because I am particularly confident, more than 60%, 70%, that he's not going to be kneeling at the end of the game. He could, 30%. But I do think Darnold ends the game with the ball, so that's an extra attempt right there, built in.
So you like over 2.5 rushing attempts for Darnold?
Yeah. I mean, I would lean that way. It's not one of my best bets.
There was a fun, we're going to talk about the running backs here coming up. There's a fun rushing prop. I guess we might as well transition to this as we go away from the quarterbacks. That'll wrap up our quarterback conversation, and we'll talk about the running backs. I saw this prop listed, and I'm not sure if FanDuel has it. I'm going to look at the game specials here. But it was, I know that when the Westgate came out with all their lines on Wednesday, Mackenzie, this was one of it, and it was amount of players to have a rushing attempt. And what would you set the line at? Like, Chris, what do you think the line should be? Number of players to have a rushing attempt?
I think it should be 6.5.
Mackenzie, what do you think the line should be?
Well, I'm just looking at the FanDuel players with rushing props, and there's 9 of them. Although some of, like, JSN is under, minus 400, under a half yard. I'm going to say 8.5 is the number.
The number was 7.5.
Yeah, it makes
So
sense.
Right in
split the
between our
difference.
two guesses.
Yeah.
Split the difference between you two. And so if you think about it, you're going to get 3 on each team. Let's say we're going to lock that in. 2 running backs and a quarterback.
Are you locking in one for sure for Darnold? Because that's where I'm not really sure.
Right?
Yes. I'm locking in 1 for Darnold there because I'm saying it's either going to be a kneel down or there might be like one play where he, just scrambles forward for 2 yards, right?
Sacked for 1 yard, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it goes. He technically gains a yard, so it's not a sack, right? It's technically one rush. Like he steps up in the pocket and falls forward. I'm going to say Shaheed gets 1, right? And so that's 7. Who is the 8th player? If we say it's Kenneth Walker, Helani, right, and Shaheed and Darnold, and then we say Henderson, Stevenson, and Drake May, do we get an A.J. Barner tush push? Do we get a Kayshawn Booty or Demario Douglas like end around sweep? Who gets the other carry here? Because we're saying Shaheed is the X factor that might get the extra carry as the 7th player. Who's the 8th player to get a rushing attempt?
Joshua Dobbs comes in for a QB sneak because Drake May's shoulders killing him.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think
think he was
JSN
first.
should definitely get one. I mean, I know he hasn't had
JSN?
one since
Yeah.
because he had them on and off until Shaheed kind of got acclimated into that role. But this is Super Bowl. We saw the 4th down Puka Nakua sweep run from the Rams to convert that in the last game. I could kind of see that happening with JSN here. Put the ball in your best player's hands. Obviously, you can assume Helani should get a carry. I'm pretty sure he should get at least 1 carry.
Yeah.
I think you can say that. For the Patriots, I mean, Travion Henderson's borderline getting no carries now, but I think he should at least get 1. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I don't see anyone. It's hard to see anyone else on the Patriots getting a carry. Frankly, I'm not sure who they've been giving carries to outside of the 2 backs in May.
Yeah.
But more from the Seahawks than the Patriots. I don't know if you could pick which team gets more rushing attempts, but I'm very much more confident in Seattle there.
I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it is an A.J. Barner, bring in the tight end for the tush push, and he gets 1 carry for 1 yard or whatnot. Running back props, Kenneth Walker, 73.5 yards. Ramondre Stevenson, 49.5 yards. Travion Henderson, 17.5 yards. Have the mighty have fallen. George Helani is at 10.5 yards. Rashid Shaheed, the aforementioned, at 4.5. A.J. Barner, who I said about the tush push, a 0.5 yard. And Jackson Smith and Jigba, a 0.5 yard as well. Let me just say this. I would never bet A.J. Barner over a 0.5 rushing yard. I'd just rather bet A.J. Barner over a 0.5 rushing attempt because you can win that without getting the yard. Like if he comes in and gets a tush push and gets stopped, right, and they don't gain a yard, he's got 1 carry for 0 yards. So I know it's probably more juicy. You have to lay a little bit of juice to get the attempt, but I would never bet the 0.5 yard. I would just bet the 0.5 attempt. Does that make sense, Mackenzie?
Well, FanDuel doesn't have that, though, either.
No,
exactly. That was actually going to be my point. It's not only going to be more juice, we got to do a little more digging, but there's usually value when you can find props that are less common.
Yep.
That's where a lot of pros specialize.
Chris, what do you think? Kenneth Walker, 73.5.
I bet the under at 75.5. I think 73.5 is still solid. This Patriots rush defense has been elite when, caveat when Milton Williams and Robert Spillane have both been on the field together. When they have not been on the field, the Patriots have not been a great rushing defense, but they're both healthy now. And this is why you look at the rushing efficiency from the teams that they played in the playoffs so far, the Texans, the Chargers, the Broncos, little to no efficiency from those running back groups there. So I think with Kenneth Walker, everyone gets so mesmerized by his cutbacks and his juking ability and the highlights he puts on tape, but he has been a relatively inefficient running back pretty much all year. And there's more than reason to why he was splitting snaps and reps and carries with Zach Charbonnet, because Kenneth Walker doesn't have great vision. Even if he does, he doesn't always tend to use that to his advantage, and that's why we see Charbonnet. That's why we saw Charbonnet pretty much take over the entire goal line inside the 10, inside the 20 role, as well as the pass blocking abilities there too. So I think there's a lot of situations, long down and distance, 2-minute drill, where Kenneth Walker is not going to be on the field. I mean, I was personally shocked just last week alone to see that George Halani, who hadn't played a snap since week 11, he was on IR. He played 23 snaps overall and has just as many pass down snaps as Kenneth Walker did. And look, obviously, Walker played 20 running down snaps compared to 3 for Halani. We know the role that those two guys will play here. But I think that gives you more reason to say, hey, look, the Patriots' run defense is back to being elite, and Halani clearly has that passing down role because they don't trust Kenneth Walker in pass blocking and in those short distance situations. I think that's enough for me to confidently bet Kenneth Walker under here. The only games he's really played well and efficiently have been against the Rams and the 49ers, but you look at the last few months, really, 3.4 yards per attempt against the Panthers, 1.9 yards per attempt against the Colts, 2.9 against the Falcons. This is a historically inefficient running back who can hit explosive plays. I don't expect him to hit explosive plays on the ground. Maybe he does in the passing game against the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Halani, that's my best bet on the game from a player prop perspective. We already gave it out at George Halani over 9.5 receiving yards. Here at FanDuel, this is up to, what are we at, 11.5 yards now for George Halani receiving yards? Let's double check that. He's at 11.5 now up on FanDuel. This was the first player prop that I bet, Chris. You mentioned him on the field in passing situations. The reason why is because, as opposed to, Cam Akers, who they signed, who has Super Bowl experience, right? Halani's been with them all year. He knows the protections. When Sam Darnold changes the protection scheme at the line of scrimmage, George Halani knows the blitz pickups. So they trust him there on those third downs, on those passing situations. And this is the thing. Everyone wants to talk about Kenneth Walker and how involved he is now in the passing game without Zach Charbonnet, and that's great. But if you look at his receiving yards number, it's taxed. It's up to 20.5 now. It was 19.5 before. Now it's at 20.5. Why? Because everyone's betting him to go over because, well, naturally, no Zach Charbonnet, he's going to catch passes. George Halani last week in the conference championship game had 3 catches for 27 yards on 4 targets. But more importantly than that, it was the opportunities. Kenneth Walker ran 15 routes last week. George Halani ran 14. We're talking about 2 running backs that ran the identical amount of routes, yet one guy is being taxed, where now we're having his prop up to 20.5 or 21.5, and the other guy, we don't know where to price him because we just don't have a lot of data points on him, just a couple of games this season, and especially if you look back at the game against the Saints with no Zach Charbonnet also, those are really the games that you have to point to. This was my favorite player prop of the entire game, George Halani over receiving yards.
Yeah, I mean...
You still like it 11.5?
I still like it 11.5, yes. Yep.
I would lean towards the receptions personally. I think what you can do confidently is look at Zach Charbonnet's receiving totals this year and almost replace that 1-for-1 with Halani here. I actually wouldn't even be surprised to see Halani get some goal line opportunities, get some short down and distance opportunities, plus 490 to score a touchdown. Maybe you can shop around for a better line. I don't think that's terrible. If you compare Halani plus 490 to Travion plus 500, who's much more likely to score a touchdown, in my opinion, it's Halani by a lot because of those roles. And I still think they don't trust, Kenneth Walker in those situations. Like, he's the type of profile in fantasy we call a trap back. He's going to get explosive runs in between the 20s, but the team doesn't trust him in the 2-minute drill. They don't trust him in pass blocking, which is long down and distance, 3rd down and long, 4th down and long. I think you can take it a step further against Walker. They don't trust him in short distance either. 1st and 2nd down runs, yes. But I think there's a lot of areas where they frankly don't trust Kenneth Walker. And I think casual viewers don't realize that. And I think that creates value on this kind of no-name player, George Halani, to where, 23, 35% plus of the snaps already in his first game back in 3 months. That number could even increase in this game. If you actually look at the PFF route data, they're charting Halani as 1 more route than Walker even just last week. So yeah, I like the receiving yards play. I also like Halani over 1.5 catches, whereas Walker, you have to play 2.5. They got the same amount of targets, same amount of catches last week. I like that too.
Yeah, over 1.5 receptions, minus 154, Mackenzie.
I like that. I think you guys explained it well. Going back to Kenneth Walker, I think his under rushing is the one play. That'll be a best bet of mine that's against my general game script. I just think the pillars of, I think the Seahawks are going to roll, but maybe they don't. The rushing yards prop says they do. And maybe he is the primary back and Helani is a distant backup, or maybe it's more 50-50. I think that's a pillar as well that the line is based on that I'm not necessarily sure is true. So I like under 73.5 for the rushing yards.
Chris, talk to me about TreVeyon Henderson. What the hell's going on with this kid? Stevenson's prop is at 49.5. Henderson is at 17.5. If we look at the rushing attempts, we have Stevenson at 14.5 and TreVeyon Henderson at 5.5. I mean, if you asked me a couple of weeks ago, TreVeyon Henderson, 5.5 rushing attempts, it'd be an auto fire for me on the over.
Yeah, well, I think what we've seen all year, really, and it's really culminated in the most important games of the season for the Patriots, is that Vrabel and the coaching staff, they don't trust TreVeyon Henderson in high leverage situations. We were all clamoring as a fantasy community, get the rookie on the field more earlier in the season. His snap counts were very low. When you look at weeks one through 8, he never saw more than 12 rushing snaps in a given game. We saw that rise go up between weeks 9 to 17 because Stevenson was missing some time there. But as soon as Stevenson got back in the fold, we started seeing the separation more. Week 18, wild card, divisional playoff, etc. Then in the conference championship game, it's like 50 snaps to 4 overall. I think the weather obviously was a tell there, but they simply just don't trust TreVeyon as a pass blocker. They don't trust him as much as a route runner compared to Stevenson. It's the same situation we just talked about with the Seahawks, but kind of flipped. Like Stevenson is also trusted more on those short down and distance, early down situations than Henderson. So my favorite prop bet, the numbers I don't think is going to move completely from 5.5 to 4.5. But the juice has already. But that was my favorite prop bet that I gave out to subscribers last week was Henderson under 5.5 rushing attempts. I just don't see the Super Bowl giving that any more reason to trust Henderson versus Stevenson. Stevenson's a bigger body back. He's a better pass blocker. He's a better route runner. He knows how to hit the holes. His vision is better. There's really no reason to put Henderson on the field for a carry or even just a snap other than just to give Ramondre Stevenson a breather. At this point, we're not talking about Stevenson as some old aging back. He's like still 26-ish years old. So he's got plenty of juice left in the tank himself. He got rid of the fumbling issue he had earlier this season. It's going to be all Stevenson in my opinion. I think the snap count's going to be very similar to what we saw in the Broncos game, which is why I love Henderson under carries versus the yards, even though I could see a case for betting both.
And it would make sense that a veteran would be more used to a 22-week season than a rookie. That's like the biggest difference between high school and college in the NFL is just how many months out of the year you got to be in peak form. They might trust the rookie less towards the end of the season simply because of that. What do you think? You're talking about short yardage situations. Stevenson plus 160 to score a touchdown. I've heard some people recommend that. It kind of makes sense if it's more of a one-back backfield than we think. I guess it's down to plus 145 at FanDuel. But what do you think about that bet, Chris?
I think you risk the May rushing factor, where we saw that happen against the Broncos specifically. And when you throw in how elite the Seahawks are against running backs, it kind of scares me off a little bit.
All right, guys, you want to jump to the wide receivers here? The sexy position, the diva position, if you will. Let's start with the Seahawks. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 93.5 receiving yards up on FanDuel. Cooper Kupp, 32.5. And for the Patriots, Stephon Diggs, 43.5. You have Hunter Henry, 38.5, the tight end. One player that I like that we can talk about, Mac Hollins. His receiving yardage is at 25.5. We'll talk about a way to play that. Rashid Shaheed, by the way, 21.5. Now, the thing with Shaheed is he's like a one-hit wonder sometimes, right? It's like he's either not going to get any attempts, they're not going to throw to him at all, and when they do, sometimes it's just one catch for 40-something yards. Would you rather play Shaheed 21.5, or would you rather play Shaheed longest reception over 14.5?
Shaheed, the volume concerns me. I don't know how I want to play Shaheed. I love him as a talent, but they're just clearly not utilizing him as like an every down player here in this offense. It's like JSN 1, and really Kupp has emerged as the number 2. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of seems like a guy I want to stay away from for this game because I could see it going any which way. For the last game,
That's why I would never play I would never play the 25.5. The only thing I would play with Shaheed would be the over 14.5 for his longest reception, because he's not a guy that's going to be a short catch guy. It's just one long deep shot down the field, which is what we saw in the NFC Championship game.
What I bet in the NFC Championship game, and the number's not there anymore, it went down a full catch, was under 2.5 catches, juice under. I like that a lot. Now it's 1.5. I would still maybe consider playing under 1.5 catches at plus money. That's the only place I can really look for Shaheed, honestly.
He is the ultimate, negatively correlated same game parlay, where you go under the receptions but over the yardage. Because if he just catches that one catch, then you maximize your payout, right, Mackenzie? Shaheed is the anti-correlated parlay guy. You go under receptions and over yardage for Shaheed as a fun one there.
Absolutely. And I kind of hope this market, as the gambling world develops, becomes more liquid and therefore we have less vig. But I love like the concept of a Shaheed over 40.5. I think if he gets one catch or not, it might be a jump ball 40 yards downfield. And it doesn't matter if you have over 20, over 30. But as Chris mentioned, they really try to make it tough to win these alt bets.
Yeah.
It can also be a screen that isn't successful, which we've seen at least 3 different times with the Seahawks. One catch for 3 yards, one catch for 7 yards, one catch for 8 yards, one catch for 2 yards. That's 4 different games since joining Seattle as well for his final stat lines.
All right, guys, here it is. On FanDuel right now, the same game parlay of Rashid Shaheed. Now, listen, you are threading the needle, okay? Understand that. But for a little pizza money, for a little dart throw, Rashid Shaheed under 1.5 receptions, Rashid Shaheed over 21.5 yards, plus 10.25.
Wow.
10 to 1 odds. 10 to 1 odds on one catch for over 22 yards.
Man, he could get hurt on a kickoff after one catch. He seems like a lot of outs for a 10 to 1.
I like it. For a 10 to 1 sprinkle, one catch, 22 yards, that's it. That's all you're getting the whole game.
So you can't get more than one catch?
Can't get more than one catch.
And it can't be shorter than 21 yards. So it is a needle, for sure.
It has to be exactly what happened. It has to be exactly what happened last week. It has to be exactly what happened last week. He catches, and imagine that sweat, by the way, last week, because that was, the first play of the game. So imagine that sweat. Shaheed gets the, what do you have? One catch. No, it wasn't last. Was it last week? Yeah.
It was the last game, yeah.
Yes, he had one catch for, 51 or what did it go for? 51 yards. So imagine that, the first play, and then you're sweating that out the rest of the game where he can't have another reception. Maybe at that point, though, you have like a cash out offer, and you can cash out. I don't know.
You bet his live total.
You can bet his live over, exactly. Yeah.
Prior to that game, he was 0 for 10 getting that prop just to hit. So I don't know. Yeah. I'd be a little worried.
All right, so it's perfect. It's 1 in 11 odds at 1 in 11 games. So it's right. If you think it's more likely this game, it's a dart throw.
What do we think about Jackson Smith and Jigba? 93.5 is obviously a juiced number, but it just feels like no matter who he plays, he gets his, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just doing the math right now. I think 8-3 overall to the over 6.5 catches, which is what I like the most with JSN. Since Shaheed became a full-time player with the Seahawks, I'm throwing out Shaheed's first game since he joined Seattle in Week 10. And the only times JSN went under here, 3 specific times. I'm going to give excuses for each one. In Week 13 against Minnesota, Minnesota maybe had the best pass defense all year, especially in specific spots. He was season low, 3 targets, 2 catches, 23 yards. I don't know if he got banged up in that game or not. I can't remember. The only other 2 times were in those dominant positive game script wins against San Francisco back-to-back Week 18 divisional playoffs. They simply didn't need JSN to do much in that game, but every other game goes over. And even in more than half of those games, he's had 8 catches or higher since Week 11 in this new Shaheed offense with Clint Kubiak calling the shots. So I think against a Patriots secondary where their greatest strength is the outside corner position and Christian Gonzalez, they do have a solid slot DB in Marcus Jones, but JSN, he's not specifically an outside receiver. He's not specifically a slot receiver. Clint Kubiak does a great job moving him all over the field. I expect that to continue here. to take advantage of those matchups, and his just elite route running abilities will create mismatch against linebackers, safeties all over the field. I expect that to continue again here. I like JSN simply just over 6.5 catches.
Over 6.5 minus 154 currently up on FanDuel. What do we think about some of the other ancillary pieces in this game? You know, Mackenzie, I was talking to a Patriots beat writer the other day, and I asked who's going to be the player that no one's talking about that is going to make one play in this game that we're going to say, wow, that was like an impactful play that changed the course of a drive. And his answer was Mac Hollins. And I kind of agree with that because, and we saw in the championship game, right? Even though he bobbled it and should have dropped it, he made that catch. And Mac Hollins is a big energy guy, right? He fires the team up. He is that kind of, X factor of a player. I was thinking about either Mac Hollins over 25.5 receiving yards or Mac Hollins over 14.5 yards for his longest reception. Because if he is that, drive changer type of player that let's inject a spark into this team, maybe our offense is lackluster, we need to wake up, it might be one shot to Mac Hollins and he can catch, a 30-yard catch. He's also very good, Mac Hollins being a veteran, at breaking off of his routes and becoming open. So if Drake May's scrambling on a play that breaks down, Mac Hollins might be the guy that finds himself open because he has a history of breaking off of those routes, working back to the quarterback, and trying to save a dead play. What do you think about Mac Hollins props?
I mean, it's a good explanation. I think it kind of go inside. I like all Patriots receivers. Well, I lean to the over at least because I'm thinking about the game script of Drake May being down. So him being extra mobile, which goes along with your over rush attempts, goes along with Mac Hollins. I was actually thinking about Kayshon Boutte for a similar point, thinking they're going to be down most of this game, looking for big splash plays. His longest completion, I think over 15.5 makes sense.
Chris, what do you think?
You said Boutte's longest reception was 15.5?
Did I misremember that? Looks like
17.
Oh, Boutte is at 17.5. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of three receiver sets where it's Boutte, Hollins, and Diggs on the field, and you'll see a very small amount of Demario Douglas mixing in, giving those guys a breather here and there. That's how I expect the rotations to work out. Pre-injury for Hollins, he had 6 straight games with at least a 13% target share. 2 of those games were without Boutte, but he did also have 3 games in that span at a 20% target share or better. He was operating as more of like an X-style possession receiver versus being more of a deep threat. So I think that despite the long catch in the last game, that it would be more Hollins like over the 2.5 catches, just as like a safety valve type of guy. Again, against a tough Seattle secondary, I'm not sure. But yeah, certainly think he will have a large role in terms of the amount of routes he runs and the snaps he plays. I think Boutte should get loose for at least one long catch, though, or at least one solid chunk gain, intermediate to deep. 17.5 isn't a bad number, in my opinion. Obviously, it was very inefficient against the Broncos, but Broncos, another very good secondary, and the weather played a huge factor there as well. So I'm kind of interested in that. It's a much riskier play to bet those long reception props, especially in a tough matchup. But I think if I had to go anywhere with Hollins, I'd probably look over his 2.5 catches, which you can get at plus money right now.
9-2 to this over, though, in the last 11 games played for Mac Hollins. I mean, you want to talk about hit rates. I mean, my goodness, that is a hit rate.
What is it in the last 12? 9-3?
Well, he was hurt.
He was hurt.
He was catch. Yep.
Okay.
He was hurt against the Bills, and then in the game before that against Carolina back in September, he had 1 catch for 4 yards. Against Pittsburgh earlier in the season, 4 for
that's a fair line of demarcation. When he came back from injury, 9-2.
Yeah. So if we look at it, 16, 27, 21, 5 womp, 54, 20, 24, 11 womp, 18, 20, and 31 in the AFC Championship game. So we're talking 9-2 hit rate for him to go over this. I mean, what is it, 14.5? I mean, yeah. Maybe shop around. Maybe you can get a 13.5 or a 12.5 somewhere. Like, maybe you can actually get a better number on this. But
it's interesting. Yeah, because he's not like the deep threat. He's like the intermediate threat.
Yeah.
which gives you more confidence on this hitting than Booty would for sure. So I do like that. I never looked at that before, but that's a very interesting angle.
Yeah. Because I do think it's like I said, I feel like if we go watch the game film, and I might actually do that later. Let me pull up the next gen stats. Because I'm curious how many of those long receptions for him were actually designed, or how many of them were unscripted. You know, like we saw in the AFC Championship game where he breaks off of his route and it winds up being a completion. I'm actually going to see if I can watch all those plays. That'll be a fun little project to see with Matt Collins. Any other receiving props that you guys are taking a look at, either receptions, receiving yards, or longest reception?
Yeah, you mentioned it at the top. If Drake May has more than 220 passing yards, how does it get there? No one's over 44.5 on the over-under. I think a big part of it has to be Hunter Henry. The Seahawks, if you look at where they are effective, where they are not effective, they're pretty effective everywhere except against tight ends. George Kittle was out, and I always forget that guy's name. The 49ers backup tight end had 59 yards in the first half.
Jacob Tongas?
Tongas. How do I forget Tongas? Such a memorable name. And same thing with the Rams tight end, Colby Parkinson, had a big game. So I think they're going to need to throw. I think Hunter Henry absorbs at least 50 yards of that. So I like his props.
What do you think, Chris? Any other passing props that you want to take a look at? Or, receiving props that you want to take a look at?
Yeah, Ramondre Stevenson, I like his over receptions. He's third on the team in receptions in the playoffs. I know it's only been a couple games. But when you just look overall at what Ramondre Stevenson's been able to do, going into the final week of the season, again, the final week of the regular season for them was almost a throwaway game, 38-10 win against Miami. The starters didn't play the full game prior to that, and this is with Henderson playing much more than now. He had 4 straight games of over 2.5 receptions. Granted, 3 of those games had 3 catches apiece, had 5 catches on 5 targets for 55 yards in week 17. And then we've seen now in the playoffs, in the first 2 playoff games, 3 catches in the wild card round, 4 catches in the divisional round, and then kind of throw out the stat to me that puts the bow on this is the Seahawks allowing the most receptions to running backs, which is really a compliment to their defense as teams are having to check down against them because the receivers are covered. So I like Stevenson because of the usage increase versus Henderson, both on the ground and through the air running routes. And then just schematically how it matches up with the Seahawks defense. I really like Stevenson to continue to go over this 2.5 receptions prop.
Nice. And yeah, you mentioned it with the Seahawks and how much they do allow here to the running backs. By the way, I'm in the process of looking at all the film for Matt Collins, and I'm 2-2 so far.
How many screens you got back there?
I'm
like the friggin' Minority Report.
I'm 2-2 so far on his 2 actual designed routes, 2 broken off for Drake May scrambling and then him finding him for a long play. So we're working our way through the film study here for Matt Collins.
When a guy goes through the tunnel and enters the locker room barefoot, I think you always got to give him the edge to go over. So the pregame entrance footage from Matt Collins is pretty strong here.
All right, we talked about touchdown scores throughout this pod, but I wanted to give out some touchdown bets here. And so I think let's go one by one, and we'll each select a touchdown prop that we would like to play here in this game. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to take it from you, Chris, because it was one of my favorite. It's my favorite bet of the game, which is the Helani over receiving yards. So I'm going to steal your idea, and my touchdown prop will be George Helani anytime touchdown plus 490 up on FanDuel. Mackenzie, what is your anytime touchdown bet?
George Helani, 2 touchdowns, 65-1.
Oh, stop it! You can't do that.
It's the Howard Griffith 1999 versus the Falcons. 2 carries, 2 touchdowns for 1 yards. No one sees it coming. 65-1.
You can't do that. Give me another player. Come on. Don't just piggyback off of mine. While you think about that, Chris, go ahead. You give me
Hunter
your
Henry, 22-1. He's going to score the last. Wait, let me give him. Actually, I'm going to make it more fun. Give me, because I think the Seahawks are going to win this game 40-8. Give me Hunter Henry to score the last touchdown at 10-1.
So now we're doing first touchdown, last touchdown. How about just anytime touchdown?
Hunter Henry,
is at plus
Hunter
230.
Henry 230.
I just think a lot of these anytime touchdown numbers are pretty bad. Like just
Yes.
looking at him, even
Fair
even
enough.
Halani at plus 490 is like I almost prefer the 2 touchdown angle. I thought about that earlier with what Mackenzie said. So I don't know. I don't know how much just anytime touchdowns I'm going to bet in this game here, to be honest with you.
Well, this is an angle that I talked about with the multiple touchdowns is and we can make this transition into Super Bowl MVP. I think if you think that the Seahawks win and you want to bet Sam Darnold to be the MVP as opposed to betting Seahawks money line, I got no problem with that, right? Because he is the most likely MVP out of this game if the Seahawks win. I would not touch Jackson Smith and Jigba with anybody's money because look at the game that he had in the NFC Championship game. It would still go to Sam Darnold, right? Unless we're saying that JSN has the exact same game that he had in the NFC Championship game, 10 catches, 153 yards, and a touchdown, but then Darnold throws like 2 interceptions. All right, maybe JSN gets the MVP. But as long as Darnold's clean and JSN puts up those numbers, the MVP is going to Sam Darnold. Think about it. It's a voted on award, storylines, sentimental value, all that stuff. What I would look at, though, from a Seahawks perspective, curious about your take on this, Chris. Instead of betting on Kenneth Walker to be the Super Bowl MVP, bet Kenneth Walker to score 2 touchdowns and bet Kenneth Walker to score 3 touchdowns. Because what's the likelihood that he only scores 1 touchdown and wins the Super Bowl MVP? It would probably have to be like a very low-scoring game, and maybe he has like 150 scrimmage yards and 1 touchdown, and that's what makes him the MVP. But in all likelihood, if he's going to be in the running, it's probably because he has multiple touchdowns in this game. And so there's also scenarios where he could score multiple touchdowns and he doesn't win the MVP or the Seahawks lose the game. So I think rather than, yes, it's an attractive number up on FanDuel, plus 850 for Kenneth Walker to be the Super Bowl MVP, I think I'd rather just go Kenneth Walker, sprinkle on him to score 2 touchdowns, sprinkle on him to score 3 touchdowns. What do you think?
I like Kenneth Walker under rushing yards, so I'm not going to do it. Plus, I like the Halani angle in short down and distance situations. So,
but in terms of the bet strategy, I think
right. If you think Kenneth Walker might win the MVP, this is a better way to get it.
I understand that. I just don't think
we don't. I like his under.
Yeah, I just don't think it's happening. I think it could be more JSN, it could be more Darnold, it could be more defensive player. I'm just not really on Kenneth Walker in this game. So that's just like, one angle, just going back to the touchdown, because I know like the Holani thing is probably like, I think if you're looking for like a long shot fun prop bet, maybe the first touchdown angle, if we think this game's going to be decided in the end with the last touchdown being a running back, let's say first touchdowns, for example, a couple of guys, Halani could be on that list for 25-1 at FanDuel. I think 2 other guys that have seen a decent amount of, I'm talking about like, between around the 25% snap count playing time. Jake Bobo, who caught a touchdown against the Rams, kind of a jumbo wide receiver package guy. He does run usually around 7-8 routes per game, has been with the team a couple years. And then Eric Saubert, who's their backup tight end, primarily plays as a run blocker, 70-1. Patriots, they are negatives across the board in defense versus position, except for tight end. So these two defenses do tend to give up a decent amount of production to opposing tight ends. So if we think the Seahawks get on the board first, I think Saubert 70-1, Bobo 45-1, Halani 25-1. Maybe those could be some interesting stabs. I think on the contrary, like with the Seahawks defense, if the Patriots strike first, Austin Hooper 33-1 first touchdown score, because it, obviously it's more than likely going to be Henry, but Hooper does mix in a decent bit here, especially as an inline tight end where they could both be on the field at the same time. Those would be my favorite, like, super long shot angles for touchdowns.
Let's talk game props before we wrap this up with our final predictions of the game. Game props. These are some of the game specials. If you go up on FanDuel, you click on Super Bowl specials or Super Bowl props, and then you click on game specials. So click on the NFL tab up on FanDuel, click on Super Bowl props, click on Super Bowl game specials. Successful 4th down conversion. The yes is minus 530. The no is plus 360. Both teams, though, to have a successful fourth down conversion. The no is minus 340. Mackenzie, the yes is plus 250. What do you think about both teams to have a successful fourth down conversion?
I feel like it's buzz happy. People like the fourth downs. Everyone's talking about we're doing more fourth downs. I'm always looking for the anti-fun bet, so I like no's on fourth downs.
My favorite bet, one that we've already played, is the shortest touchdown scored under 1.5 yards, currently minus 138 up on FanDuel. This is cashed in 8 of the last 10 Super Bowls, the only 2 years that it didn't. There was a 2-yard touchdown and a 3-yard touchdown. This is cashed in 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls. And in some of these games, we've actually had multiple 1-yard touchdown scores. So many ways you can get down to the goal line. You could have, obviously, the pass interference in the end zone, which we love, but you could also have just a possession that starts inside the 10 or the 5 that becomes 4-down territory where you just work your way down to the goal line and then continue to go for it. You could have a player that dives for the pylon and gets ruled short out of bounds at the 1-yard line. There's a lot of ways where you can cash this, and it has cashed over 60% going back even beyond 10 years. But 8 of the last 10 years, 5 of the last 6. Chris, what do you think about shortest touchdown under 1.5 yards?
I was going to try to be contrarian and say over, but you kind of talked me off the ledge there. So you brought up some really good trends. I'm just thinking in my head, like, these are 2 really good run defenses, maybe the 2 best run defense in the league, so bet over, but I wouldn't bet against those trends personally.
You can pass from the goal line. We've seen it in many, many Super Bowls. And, well, maybe the Seahawks might not want to pass at the goal line, Mackenzie. They might learn from that
Right.
mistake. Yeah. How about this? Will there be a successful 2-point conversion? Mackenzie, the yes is plus 290. The no is minus 410.
So there's kind of 2 stats that I look at. How many successful fourth 2-point conversions have you had? And that would point to no, there's not going to be one. Both of these teams have only had 3 in 39 games combined. However, a good stat, if you like this prop, is in 6 attempts by 2 teams combined, they went 6 for 6. These teams did not miss any of their 6 attempts, both of them 3 for 3 on the season.
One bet that I like here, either team to score a touchdown on their opening drive. No, minus 138. Chris, what do you think?
Say that again.
Will either team score a touchdown on their opening drive? My bet is no.
I think you'd have to lean no. Yeah, I think, don't the trends point pretty strong in the no there from just remembering past Super Bowls? Yeah.
Especially Josh McDaniels. I think he went his first 7 Super Bowls without scoring in the first quarter.
Yeah. And I love, like, the time of the, here, there's FanDuel has different times. Points scored in the first 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. I'm going to go with the no at minus 146 up on FanDuel. No points scored in the first 6 minutes of the game.
Okay.
How about that, Mackenzie?
I think that's strong. Sam Darnold, the one worry any Seahawks fan is him turning back to a pumpkin. I think they're not going to protect him, but they're going to be cognizant of that to start. And then any rookie or any second-year player is, likely going to be, a little bit hesitant in the first quarter. So I like, and other pros have given this out, under quarterback passing yards. It's kind of a tough one to find. They're both at about 50. I like both of that. I like under first quarter. I agree with that entire trend. Second half points higher than the first half.
Yep.
Doesn't hit every year, but it's been a strong thing that pros go back to. Can I give out? Is this my time to give out a prop?
Yeah, we're going through all the game specials here. Yep.
Okay, all right. So one that I like is, will there be an offensive touchdown scored in a fourth down? No, minus 400. Again, I just think it's the not fun bet. No one likes to lay minus 400, but the numbers point to it. And my favorite prop of this entire podcast is, will there be 3 touchdowns or any scores consecutive for either team unanswered? People always like to think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be tough. But this is saying it's about a 60% that it's going to happen. And historically, it's strong. I think it's 8 for the last 10. But just these teams this season, they played 39 games, 29 times, either them or their opponent had 3 consecutive scores. In a lot of games they won, they were up by so much that their opponent had 3 consecutive scores. So that's 72%, should be minus 230. It's minus 160. I think that's the Super Bowl effect. People just assume it's going to be that classic back and forth game. It can be, and there can be 3 straight scores.
Yep. Minus
you also
160.
have that first half, second half possession change should help there too, right?
Exactly, right. You could, you often have the opportunity to double up, and then you just need one more. You just need one stop and score.
Speaking of the double up opportunity, will there be a score in the final 2 minutes of the first half? Yes, minus 430. No, plus 320. Anybody have an opinion on that?
Say that again?
Will there be a score in the final 2 minutes of the first half? The yes is minus 430. Right? It's a heavy juice on the yes. It's crazy.
It's heavy juice. I know that's the highest scoring of the whole game.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
All right.
I mean, I just my gut instinct would say no and take the plus money, but my gut instinct is probably also the casual instinct. So I don't have any research behind it. I don't know.
All right, here we go. A fun one to bet every single year. Total number of players to record a pass attempt. Over or under 2.5. The over is plus 148. Will we have, and this is also known in other sports books as will a non-quarterback throw a pass, but this is the thing, the beauty about this market where it says total number of players to record a pass attempt is you can get a backup quarterback that comes into the game at the end and maybe attempts a pass. If the game's a blowout and you get a backup to come in, or if there's an injury, let's say Drake May is, this is the reason why I love the yes on this is there's so many ways to cash this. It doesn't have to be a trick play, right? What if Drake May is running and gets a big blow? He gets hit. It's a big blow. And the independent neurologist calls down and says, hey, we just got to send him to the blue tent and make sure he's okay. Drake May comes out of the game for 1 or 2 plays. And guess what? The Patriots might have to pass. And you can get a backup quarterback throwing a pass. And then Drake May comes back in the game. Like with a running quarterback, that's always a possibility. And then there's this. And I don't know if this was a misdirection or what. But Cooper Kupp posted an Instagram here on Monday of a picture of him at practice throwing a football. Does that mean that Cooper Kupp was practicing a pass to play in the Super Bowl, Chris? What do you think? Over under 2.5 players to attempt a pass.
That would be the dumbest thing I ever heard for a player to actually post it publicly on social media.
Why would
I mean, look, I think the best way to play it would just say no because everyone wants the yes, right? Like, that would be Eftim Chisholm is recorded of having a pass attempt here. He was a healthy scratch last game, but he does have 1 playoff pass attempt already under his belt. We'll see if he's actually activated for the Super Bowl. No regular season pass attempts. 1 for Cooper Kupp in 16 games during the regular season, so he already tried it once, did not complete it. If a backup comes in, I think the only way we're getting a passing attempt from a backup is during a competitive game / injury, not at the end. Because if it's a blowout, then why would they even have the backup throw a pass other than just hand it off? That would be my thought there. So, yeah, I don't know. I can only say the ones I want to get your guys' interest on this because there's a lot of them here. Team that scores last wins the game. I would think no because the other team is trying to play catch up. So plus 160 on the no. We saw that with the Rams-Seahawks game just a couple weeks ago. And then will there be a 2-point conversion attempt in general? The yes is plus 150. Those kind of stood out to me a little bit, but I honestly do not know the trends there.
I would say yes on the 2-point conversion. Just Mackenzie, I would just say yes on the conversion attempt because it's plus 150.
Well, they've had 6 attempts combined all season.
Oh, wow.
I like to know. I mean, I know a lot of those games are not desperate because they're winning, but a lot of the games they were, in close games. So,
and what about 4th down conversions, period, over, under 1.5 at even money? You guys got any thoughts there?
It seems like over is the obvious answer.
Right, that's
maybe
my hesitancy.
Maybe the contrarian play is the no. Although,
but by the way, I just had this thought on Kupp. What if he's going to catch a double reverse? He's throwing us off the scent. We think he's going to throw a pass in his last game. He's actually going to maybe throw a lateral pass back to a guy that throws it differently. I've seen it in Kubiak's offense before. I don't know how to take advantage of that.
That's the thing.
Watch out for that.
You're right. Like, what if it is an end around, a handoff to Cooper Kupp, and then he throws it backwards to Sam Darnold, and then Darnold throws it down the field? Technically, Cooper Kupp did not throw a pass. That's a lateral.
Exactly.
So,
I think that could happen.
Wow.
Who played quarterback in high school out of both the 53-man roster?
Right.
We got to do
have to figure that out.
Figure this out.
The long snapper comes in.
Oh, actually, we do know that. What's his face?
Shahid, I think, was a quarterback, right?
No, was
Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh my goodness. I forgot who it was. It was some player that we were talking about that didn't. Oh no, it was who recently threw a pass in the playoffs. I don't think it was for either of these teams. But there was a player that did throw a pass, and it was like everyone was talking about him like being recruited out of high school and how
Juwan Jennings.
Juwan Jennings, yes.
Yeah.
And how he was actually like rated higher than both Sam Darnold and like all the guys like coming out of high school. So yeah. All right, guys. Great Propapalooza episode. Let's leave the folks with our final score predictions and the MVP. Who would like to go first? Mackenzie, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I've telegraphed this the whole way, but I'm going to be a little more conservative. 34-17 Seahawks.
Wow.
And the MVP?
Sam Darnold.
I am going to go 27-20 Seahawks. Sam Darnold MVP. Chris, what do you got?
I will say 24-20 Seahawks.
So you have the Patriots covering. All right, we needed some we needed some balance here. That's
I almost said 24-21 though. So let's keep that. Yeah, it'd still be a cover at the same time. Sam Darnold for me, has to be it. I just what last question I'll ask you guys. What would JSN need to win Super Bowl MVP? Because I think he does have a realistic chance.
He needs Darnold to throw multiple interceptions. Because
that's most likely,
it has to be. If you think about when Cooper Kupp won for the Rams, Stafford had a great game, 3 touchdowns, but Stafford threw 2 interceptions. And then if you look at the game with Julian Edelman winning, Brady threw 2 touchdowns to 1 interception, and Edelman also had like the big catch in that game that was like the game changer, right? So
I also
if
think
Darnold's clean, I don't care what JSN does. Because again, look at the NFC Championship game. Is he really going to have a better game in the Super Bowl than he had in the NFC Championship game? Is he going to do better than 10 catches, 153 yards, and a touchdown in this game?
So I think Darnold would have won MVP if it was a conference championship. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah,
100%.
But
I think one way
he tripled JSN's touchdown count though too, right?
Right, exactly. And that's the one route I think JSN could have if Darnold doesn't blow up with a bunch of interceptions, but they just score like 14 points. It's like a super low scoring game. Yeah. Then that one touchdown or that 100 yards from JSN will be that much more important.
Sure. If it's a low scoring game and Darnold
17-14 or something.
Yeah, and Darnold finishes with like 190 yards and 1 touchdown, and that's it. And JSN has 9 catches for 75 and a touchdown. He could be the guy. But I just think it's so hard to bet on a wide receiver. Yes, it's happened twice in the last 10 years, but I just gave you the reasons why. It's just so hard, especially on what is a narrative-driven award, where how are you not going to vote for the story? Look, Jackson Smith-Njigba on Thursday is going to win the Offensive Player of the Year, right? He's going to get his award. How do you not acknowledge Sam Darnold if the Seahawks win the Super Bowl, unless he has a terrible game? How do you not just vote for him to be the MVP?
It sounds to me like it comes down to touchdown distribution. So what is JSN to win Super Bowl MVP again?
He's the second favorite. Oh, he's the second favorite on the Seahawks. So he's it's Darnold plus 115, Drake May plus 230, and then JSN plus 550.
So I think the better bet, if you thought that, just play JSN to score 2+ touchdowns plus 650, because I think that's the only chance he has to score multiple touchdowns.
Yeah, which is exactly that's how I talked about it with Kenneth Walker as well. All right, great stuff, guys. Hope you guys got a lot out of this. Reminder, up right now, all throughout this week for free, up on BetterDay.com for Better Day members. So just sign up for free. You get access to it. Our Super Bowl Ultimate Assistant your ultimate AI tool to prepare you for the Super Bowl. We loaded this thing with historical data on the Super Bowls. It's got data on the referee, Sean Smith. It's got data on the players, the play-by-play data, all the numbers that you need to figure out your hit rates, your implied probabilities, the prop bets. Ask it what the likelihood of a 0-0 first quarter is. It's going to tell you. And why it's a bad bet with the sports books giving you like plus 220 on it. Terrible bet. It should be like 11-1 or 12-1. Anyway, so take a look at that. Play around with the Super Bowl Ultimate Assistant. The link is right there on the homepage up on betterday.com. You can follow Chris Dell on Twitter at Mad Journalist with 2 D's in Mad. Make sure you check out bettingpredators.com. He'll have a prop sheet up as well up on his website. Chris, for those who need a reminder, one of Fantasy Pro's most accurate fantasy football analysts for several years running. And then there's also Mackenzie Rivers, who we could not do this podcast without. We will be live from San Francisco on Thursday, so we will get you all the insight from everybody that we talk to. We'll do a live stream for our Better Day Premium members, live from Radio Row, coming up on Thursday in San Francisco. For Chris Dell, Mackenzie Rivers, I'm Scott Seidenberg. Here's hoping you make today and every day and Super Bowl week a better day.